The Galactic Council had always known that humanity was dangerous. The species had clawed its way out of its own primitive savagery with a speed that defied conventional wisdom, surviving extinction events, self-inflicted wars, and planetary catastrophes that should have crippled them. They were an anomaly, resilient, unpredictable, and most of all, ruthless when backed into a corner. For centuries, the Council had watched them, wary but hopeful. There had been debates about their integration into the interstellar community, yet the consensus had always been the same. Humans were a species that was best left alone, monitored but never provoked. They were intelligent, certainly, but their history was stained with a level of violence unparalleled by any other known civilization. Then the Zarkrath came. The Zarkrath were not conquerors in the traditional sense. Conquerors left survivors. The Zarkrath did not. They were a predatory hive species, moving through the galaxy like locusts, stripping planets of life before moving on to the next. The Council's diplomatic overtures had been ignored. Their peace envoys had been slaughtered. Their fleets, unprepared for true war, had been shattered in their first engagements. As the Council reeled from one loss after another, entire sectors fell silent, their populations erased. The remaining member species, long accustomed to peace, found themselves paralyzed by fear. They had never needed a military force beyond defensive fleets and automated deterrents. They had no weapons capable of fighting back against an enemy that did not negotiate. And so, in desperation, they turned to the one species they had long feared. The request was simple. Humanity was to mobilize against the Zarkrath. In return, they would be granted full membership into the Galactic Council, given access to trade routes, technology, and influence. It was an offer made with trepidation, because everyone understood that once humans were unleashed, there would be no going back. The response was swift. The humans did not ask for negotiation or diplomacy. They did not waste time in discussion. Within days, their fleets were mobilized, their troops deployed. Unlike the other species, they did not view the Zarkrath as an unstoppable force. They saw only an enemy, one that could be studied, exploited, and, above all, destroyed. The first battle took place over Varni's Prime, a council world that had already been declared lost. The Zarkrath fleet swarmed over its cities like a tidal wave of living metal, millions of their warriors flooding its surface, burrowing into the infrastructure, devouring its population. The Council's analysts had predicted that the humans would mount a last-ditch defense, perhaps an evacuation effort. What happened instead sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The humans did not attempt to save the planet. They did not try to hold defensive positions. Instead, they glassed their own colony from orbit, turning the once thriving metropolis into a wasteland of fire and radioactive storms. The Council watched in stunned silence as the human fleet systematically destroyed every landing zone, every hive structure the Zarkrath had built, ensuring that nothing remained for them to consume. And then the true horror began. The Zarkrath had never known fear. They were a species of absolute conquest, unchallenged for millennia. But the humans did not fight like any species they had encountered before. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They fought with a single, terrifying purpose: eradication. They deployed biological weapons engineered within weeks, viruses designed to infiltrate the Zarkrath's hive communication networks, turning their own soldiers against each other. The hive queens, normally secure in their hidden chambers, were assassinated with precision orbital strikes that left no trace of their existence. When the Zarkrath adapted, the humans adapted faster. They lured entire fleets into gravity traps, using the very laws of physics as a weapon. They deployed shock troops, elite human warriors who operated with terrifying efficiency, each soldier outmatching entire squads of Zarkrath in close combat. And worst of all, they understood psychological warfare. The humans learned that the Zarkrath's hive mind was sensitive to auditory distress signals. They began broadcasting the death screams of captured Zarkrath across enemy comms, disrupting their coordination, causing chaos within their ranks. The Council found it unsettling, but for humanity, it was simply another tactic. One by one, the Zarkrath worlds began to fall, not to occupation, but to annihilation. The humans did not claim territory. They did not establish rule. They simply eliminated every trace of the enemy and moved on to the next. Within a year, the once invincible Zarkrath Empire was reduced to scattered remnants. Their homeworld, long thought to be impenetrable, was cracked open like an egg. The last of their queens were executed in a single, coordinated strike that left no survivors. The war was over. The Galactic Council reconvened, this time not to discuss humanity's inclusion, but to address a far greater question. Had they made a mistake? The humans had saved them, there was no doubt about that. Without them, the Zarkrath would have consumed every world in their path. But the council members could not forget what they had witnessed. The sheer brutality, the unrelenting efficiency with which humanity had waged war, it was unlike anything in recorded history. A meeting was held. Representatives from every species sat in silence as a single human entered the chamber. Their leader, Admiral Elias Grayson, stood before them, hands clasped behind his back, expression unreadable. One of the council members, a trembling Ralmec diplomat, finally found the courage to speak. Your people have done what none of us could. You have ended the Zarkrath. But tell us, Admiral, is this what we should expect from humanity? Is this how you always fight? Grayson studied them for a moment before answering. His voice was calm, devoid of arrogance or malice. Only when we have to. The room fell into silence. And in that moment, the council understood that they had not just invited humanity into their ranks. They had unleashed them upon the galaxy. And there was no turning back.